He does not respect men as men respect men. He does not even respect age. You know, sometimes we want to respect elders. They will say, these people are our elders in CAPRO. They are the one God may speak through. If God wants to be God, he will speak through somebody that has just finished SOM. And then we shall say, how can God speak to you? Keep quiet. But that is God. So what is the import of all this? Let us be conscious that God is seeking individual and be begging God that you shall be that individual. He's seeking for a man that will be different. Anytime the land is in peril, God begins to seek. He begins to look around. When God is looking around, may he find you. You know something that surprised me sometimes? You remember Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah was the one before God. Isaiah was seeing God like this. God was seeing Isaiah. Isaiah was seeing God, was seeing the angels. And God was saying, who will go for us? Who will I send? You know, if your father wants to embarrass you, it happened to me before. You are there. And your father begins to say, I'm looking for somebody responsible. How you feel? Isaiah was seeing God. He was seeing the cherubims and the seraphims. God was seeing him. He said, who shall I send? Who will go for us? Thank God for Isaiah. He didn't, because of that, get angry. He just said, Father, here am I. Send me. God is looking for a man. God is looking for a man. He is looking for individuals at this time of peril. When we are talking of times of peril, yesterday we say the greatest peril that sounds so scandalous in heaven is that in heaven they will say, if you look at Nigeria, what God has put in Nigeria as salt has lost its saltiness. It is scandalous. They will say, what God has put in Nigeria as light. What has happened to it? What has happened to the light? We saw yesterday, it has become darkness. Jesus said, take it that your light does not become darkness. Then this is possible. In heaven, the same way we say, have you heard the news today that Boko Haram attacked that place, attacked this place? There in heaven, they say, have you heard? In Nigeria, what Baba has put there as light has become darkness. That is a scandal. And to them, they will be saying among themselves, the angels will be saying, this is a perilous time. This is a perilous time for salt not to be salt again, and for light to be transformed into darkness. This is a perilous time. The peril of this time, my brethren, is that the salt is no more salt. It is so perilous that it is inimaginable. How can salt not be salt again? How can light be transformed to darkness? Yes, it is like saying, how can good be transformed to bad? But that is what is happening. We are at these perilous times. What should be our attitude at a time like this? I will go back to that passage that our brother Dondo read. If the Lord wants 10 people to come back to the same verse, he knows what he's doing. In 1 Peter chapter 4, 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7. But the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves, for charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received a gift, even so minister the same one to another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of God, and so on. In those 3 or 4 verses, we see 2 categories of actions demanded of us at these perilous times. There's a perilous times I've not talked about. I'm going to talk about it later. But what I'm saying now is not likely to apply to that time, but I will explain it to you. At these perilous times we have talked about, where evil seems to be reigning, where things are hard, where there are insurgents all over, where the church is hated, we see here what our attitude should be. Verse 7 talks of our attitude in the world. Verses 8 to 10 talk of our attitudes among ourselves as Christians. In the verse 7, talking of our attitude in general, but the end of all things is at hand. Be therefore sober and watch unto prayer. The first thing I notice as an attitude we must adopt in a deliberate way, the first is to be conscious that we are at the end times. That is the first attitude. The consciousness that the end is near. To be conscious that things are drawing to an end. The consciousness of the soon end of all things is a kind of a spiritual therapy. It is galvanizing to forget that the end of all things is soon, put you in a state of slumber. It puts you in a situation of unreadiness. It does not help you to be alert. Christians live forgetting that the end of all things is near. They forget that this world is for a time. They forget there must be a deliberate effort to remind yourself regularly that the end of all things is soon. In such a way that in your plannings for your life, remind yourself the end of all things is at hand. As you are struggling for that political post, remind yourself, because even this government that I want to go into, the time will come when it will not matter. Why? Because Jesus will have established some kingdom. And at that time, he will sit in Jerusalem as the king and the president of the whole world, and he will be looking for people in different nations that is going to put over the nations. Like he will be looking for somebody to put over Makode. He'll be looking for somebody to put over Doko. And the criteria that he's going to use to choose belongs to him. So if by my political ambition now, I disqualify myself from those that Jesus will establish there, then even if I'm the president of Nigeria now, when Jesus comes, I will have lost out. When Jesus comes and he rewards us with kingdoms, we shall be there for how many times? How many times will you do? It is not 1 term or 4 years. It is 1 term of eternity. And do you know something? If you enter eternity with no reward, you will finish eternity with no big reward. If you enter eternity as king, if they put you there, I don't know the ruling house in Makodi, but the person Jesus will put over Makodi is not likely to come from the ruling house. In fact, one of the things that will make the millennium, the final battle after millennium to happen, is that they said the Lord will have put people over kingdoms. Imagine he looks for a Yoruba man and he puts over Makodi. The people of Makodi say, "Stop!" Are you understanding me? Then they will plan. That is what God was showing David. And he wrote Psalm 2. He said, "Why do the heathen rage? And the pagans imagine vain things in their heart." They said, and they plan to attack all those people that have been put to reign over them. Jesus is not going to look at tribes to give kingdom. He can decide to choose a Igbo man over Ibadan. And then they will say, he's not a son of Israel. You see, when you know that these things are for soon, there are some things that will not be important. It will affect the way you run after money. Actually, people that are stealing our monies in billions, they don't have this in mind. If you calculate, you will know that that amount of money, by the time Jesus comes, it does not belong to you, not to your descendants. In fact, that money alone may be the reason why you'll be condemned for eternity. The first attitude, the consciousness of the soon coming of Jesus. It may even make make you to decide. You know, there are some ladies, they want to marry at all costs, even if it's an unbeliever. But when you know that the end of all things is at hand, you will say, I will not let few years of getting married disqualify me for the bliss of eternity. When you know that the end of all things is for very soon, you will not invest in houses that are so large and expensive that you cannot even use them. Is it not foolishness to build a big house for yourself? Maybe you and your wife and children, you are less than 4 or 5. And you build the mansion so much, so many houses, that for months you don't need them. For years you don't need them. A house that is so big that there are rooms nobody enters for years. Is it not stupidity? But when you remember that the end of all things is at hand. In fact, these things you labor for, one day, they will destroy it and it will be useless. It will affect your priorities in life. The end of all things is at hand. When Christians are conscious that the end of all things is near, it will affect their spiritual alertness. The end of all things is near. Hallelujah. The second thing that I notice in this passage that is telling us how to prepare for a time like this, he says, be ye therefore, what should be? Sober. Soberness, clear-mindedness. Don't allow emotions to decide for you. Be clear-minded. Don't behave like somebody under intoxication. But do you know that there are some meetings we go to, the way words are put together to deceive us, it is to intoxicate us, to confuse us. We can put words together that have no meaning, just to confuse people. As we are in a perilous times, let nothing intoxicate you. Let nothing confuse you. Don't be drunken. Be clear-minded, soberness. Know what you are doing. Let your mind be clear. Don't take decisions emotionally. Let the Holy Spirit guide you. At this time of peril, we need to be sober-minded. You know, at times of peril, people want to do something. And sometimes they go from fire pan to fire. You want to solve a problem. You are creating another one. In fact, somebody was telling us in one LDG, someone out of fear was running away from insurgency in the north. He ran to Lagos. The day he got to Lagos, It was OPC that killed him. He solved a problem, create another problem. Not soberness. When people are in situation of peril, they are likely to panic. But we are not to panic. We are to be sober-minded. Hallelujah. Clear-minded. Knowing that running away from a danger could put me in another danger. The reason, therefore, while I will leave this place is because in soberness of mind, I feel led of God to leave, but not out of panic. A time of peril can make you to panic, but it is the time to be sober-minded. Another attitude we see in this parade, we should watch. Watch. Be observant. Watching what is happening. Watching what is happening, and watching in the Word of God. What the Word says and what we are saying, how do they relate? Watching. Being observant. Being inquisitive. Seeking to learn, to understand. Watching. At such a time as this, when we are in perilous times, our eyes must be open. There are so many false teachers. It takes watching. It takes being careful. It takes prudence. It takes extra care not to fall as a prey. Many are already prey. We are living at a time where it seems as if people are not wise. People join themselves with any man of God. A church that I know broke because the pastor divorced his wife to marry the wife of a member. In fact, before the members knew, he had been traveling. He would travel to US. The wife would travel to US at the same time. And that's how they were caught, like that one day. By another member that was happening to be at the US. So when eventually the matter blew out, and the pastor was put under suspension by the leadership, he left the church to go and start his own church. His wife had not packed out of the house. He started another church in that house. Some people from the other church, people that saw this man's fornicating and adulterous life, they still followed him. People seem to be spiritually foolish. They still followed him. Why? He's a man of God. A pastor and his wife, both of them were pastors in a church. They had problems within themselves. They divorced. The church divided into two. Some people followed the wife, others followed the husband. Indeed, the tabernacle of David has fallen in ruins. But at a time like this, it is at a time to watch, to look carefully, to watch, because many of the things they present as gospel is not gospel. We have fabricated some kind of gospels that are not gospel. They are not gospel. They will not take people to heaven. And the proof is they cannot transform your life. Those that have received such gospel, their lives have not transformed. Yes, they have started to go to church. Yes, their language has changed. They now speak more bogusly, boldly, but nothing has changed in their life. The fear of God has not come to their life. Sin has not ceased in their life. What they receive as gospel is not gospel. Maybe what you have that you are calling gospel is not gospel. Maybe it is not gospel. Maybe it is not gospel. You know, brethren, some of us have so much burden about this matter that we took it, let me say, very personal, begging God to show where the problem is. The reason why many people come to our churches, they go to our meetings, their lives have not changed. I told you one reason this morning, because many are not seeking God. Did you get that? Did you get that? They are not seeking God.